31st of August, 2003, Las Cruces, New Mexico, a quiet desert city with a calm college town energy. That night, 22-year-old Katie Sepich, a graduate student at New Mexico State University, had spent the evening at a small house party with close friends. The night was warm, the music was soft, and Katie was in high spirits. She'd recently finished her undergraduate degree and was working towards a master's in business administration. Friends described her as fiercely intelligent, warm, and vibrant, the kind of person whose laughter filled every room. At some time around midnight, Katie decided to leave the party. Her boyfriend, Gabriel, had gone home earlier after an argument, and Katie, slightly tipsy but composed, told friends she'd be fine walking the short distance back to her home on Prospector Avenue. She never made it. The discovery. The next morning, a man was walking his dogs along a remote dirt road at the edge of town, and he saw something unusual. Near an abandoned landfill, lying face down in the dust, was the body of a young woman. Her clothes were torn, and it was clear that she had been attacked. Police soon identified her as Katie Sepich. She had been brutally beaten, strangled, and partially burned, as though her killer had tried to destroy the evidence. The spot where she was found was only a few miles from her home, yet far enough from the main roads that it seemed the killer had specifically chosen the area. The crime stunned Las Cruces. Murders were rare here, especially something so violent. Detectives immediately launched a massive investigation, starting with the people closest to Katie. The investigation begins. Katie's boyfriend was the first to be questioned. Their argument that night had been overheard, and some friends mentioned that Katie had stormed out angry. But when detectives examined his clothes, his home, and his alibi, nothing tied him to the murder. Meanwhile, forensic teams collected DNA evidence from the crime scene, from under Katie's fingernails, her clothes, and the areas surrounding her body. Whoever had attacked her had fought with her, and she had fought back, and left behind traces of her killer. Police entered the DNA sample into CODIS, the FBI's national database. They waited, hoping for a match, but no match came. Weeks passed, then months. Leads dried up, and the case began to go cold. The long silence. Katie's parents, Jan and Dave Sepich, were devastated. They couldn't understand how, in a world full of forensic technology and databases, a murderer could walk free for years. The Las Cruces Police Department, though persistent, was stuck. Every potential suspect was ruled out. The DNA remained unmatched, belonging to someone who had never been arrested or entered into the system. But Katie's parents refused to let her become another cold case. They began studying forensic science, contacting state officials, and asking why DNA wasn't routinely collected from everyone who was arrested for serious crimes. They were told that, at the time, DNA samples were only taken after conviction, a delay that allowed many offenders to slip through the cracks. Jan and Dave made it their mission to change that. A break in the case. 3 years later, in 2006, a name finally appeared. Police in Albuquerque arrested a 27-year-old man named Gabriel Avila for an unrelated burglary. His DNA was taken after his conviction, and when it entered the database, it triggered a match. It matched the DNA from Katie's murder. When investigators confronted Avila, he confessed almost immediately. He said he'd seen Katie walking home that night, alone, and followed her. The details of his confession were sickening, but they matched the forensic evidence perfectly. Katie's killer had finally been found. Justice for Katie. Avila was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Katie Sepich. For her parents, the moment brought a strange mixture of relief and sorrow. They had fought for years to find the truth, but now that it was here, the reality was unbearable. Still, they weren't finished. Jayan and Dave continued the fight for DNA reform, pushing for what would later be known as Katie's Law. Katie's Law. Signed into law in 2006 by the governor of New Mexico, Katie's Law required DNA samples to be collected from anyone arrested for a felony, not just those convicted. The idea was simple. If police had Avila's DNA at the time of his arrest for an earlier assault, Katie's murder might never have happened. The movement spread across the United States. By 2020, over 30 states had adopted versions of Katie's Law, leading to thousands of cold case breakthroughs and preventing countless crimes. Katie's death, as horrific as it was, ended up changing the landscape of forensic justice forever. Legacy. Katie Sepich was just 22 years old. Her life was just beginning, full of ambition, promise, and light. Her parents have said that while they will never stop grieving, they take comfort knowing that their daughter's legacy continues to protect others. Through their advocacy, Katie became more than a victim. She became a symbol of change. A night of unimaginable tragedy led to a movement that saved lives. And because of that, Katie Sepich's name will never be forgotten.